And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Joining us right now is our friend Frank Figliuzzi, FBI Assistant Director, retired, MSNBC National Security Analyst, author of the book Long Haul, Hunting the Highway Serial Killers, and he's got a Substack, which is really growing, and I just watched the video right before we started, which was kind of frightening, and we'll talk about why. Frank, nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm glad we could do it. The news cycle is out of control, so if we can take a breath and dig into some things, that's always a good thing.
It is, and that's the beauty of longer form like radio. I mean, radio is meant for like stories and explanations, and you learn a lot more than in a 4-minute TV hit where you're divided between you and another guest and a host and blah, blah, blah. So let's talk about, obviously, the big news this week. Donald Trump sending the National Guard to Washington, D.C., and also taking control of the D.C. Metropolitan Police. And look, there is one bucket where you can have a discussion about crime, and that's what the corporate media is trying to pull people. Aren't you worried about crime? Donald Trump just filled the press conference with lies, lie after lie after lie, undermining the fact that is there crime? There's crime everywhere. There's crime in the White House. You got a convicted felon walking around. But I'm saying so to me, the most jarring part was doing something as alarming as taking over a police department and putting troops on the ground based on lies. That to me is the story. It's not about crime in DC. It's about he's a serial liar.
There's a couple of stories here, but you're on the money, Dean. They want people like you and me who think and talk for a living to fall into a trap. And that trap, as you alluded to, is if you criticize this, you're soft on crime, right? So I'm here to tell you, 25 years with a gun and badge, I'm not soft on crime, right? I've led FBI offices. I don't know how many arrests have been made under my supervision throughout my career. I don't know. But I'm not soft on crime, but I am big on facts, just like you are. I'm a data guy. So please don't lie to me. Please don't get up there and fabricate some data that justifies militarizing our cities. So the big takeaways for me about the DC takeovers, a couple. One, he's flexing authority that he has. He can do it in DC. People say, why DC? Because he can. Why does he want to? He wants to normalize boots on the ground and federalizing law enforcement in the United States. And yeah, he is lying in order to do it. Those are the big concerns. We become numb to this, and it keeps creeping into cities near you and near me.
I think you make a great point at the top. That's you see what we're seeing as well. What the right wing wants is to be framed as Democrats soft on crime. That's one bucket. The other is, and I actually heard it on MSNBC, someone who I respect a lot, but it was in the teleprompter, so she read it. Well, Governor Kathy Hochul sent the National Guard to New York and our subways to deal with crime at one point, and people didn't freak out over that. Well, she was the governor of New York, and we were having a crime surge based on data. And she couldn't hire new police officers right away, so she's doing something to help protect us. It wasn't a wannabe tyrant who has a track record now following the entire fascist playbook, going, here's page 27 of the fascist playbook. I'm going to do something that people don't want. The people were fine with it. Because the National Guard, we've seen them in the subway. We see them at Grand Central Station. They don't bother anyone. They do their job. They support the police if they're there. That's a different story. They're not being forced there, again, based on a lie. It's a lie.
Well, Governor, good example, because Governor Hochul, governor of New York, was doing it under whose authority? Her authority to deploy her National Guard out of New York. That's entirely different. And by the way, with the justified crime problem, people are afraid to get on the subways. Okay. That is very different than the president of the United States hinting that he's going to deploy the National Guard in states where governors, that maybe he doesn't like, maybe they're blue state governors, where he wants to have that imprint. And he's starting tonight with National Guard deploying overnight in DC. So this is the mission creep I'm concerned about. And as you said, the data is not there to support it, but he seems uninterested in that data.
This might be simplistic or maybe not. It feels like we're in a Cold War, like we're in a Cold War against this administration. and it's being leveled against the blue states. I mean, we have Democratic presidents who always say, "I want to be president of everyone," right? Donald Trump literally said not too long ago, "I hate Democrats." Literally said, "I hate Democrats." It seems like he doesn't want to govern; he wants to rule us, and that's how I feel. And I haven't felt that before from any president. Not even this first term, I didn't feel that. Now I feel there's a guy in the White House who wants to rule and make the blue states and blue cities submit to him.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's now been in office going on 7 months, right? He could say, hey, crime is down in American cities, and he could make stuff up, which he does regularly, and say, I had something to do with that. I'll take credit for it. No, he wants it to be worse. He wants to fabricate this panic about crime, and it's really hard for the other party to say, as we've been talking about, to kind of fight back on this and go, wait a minute, I don't want military here. I don't need the Marines in Los Angeles. What are you doing? Because then, as we said, you're soft on crime. So what does he do instead? He's manufacturing a problem, a solution in search of a problem, right? And we're going to see more of this. Take him at his word when he says, I'm going to move this to other cities. And then we're going to have problems. There's going to be litigation. But as you know, by the time a governor says, I'm going to court, it's too late. The boots are on the ground already. And then you got to do it after the fact, which, by the way, Gavin Newsom is doing, and Mayor Bass in LA are doing in federal court, even as we speak right now, challenging what has happened in LA.
The press conference on Monday was such a clown car mess, where you have Trump saying crime's horrible, and Kash Patel gets up there. He says murder rate's the lowest it's been in all these years, and try to pat himself on the back. I'm like, and then Pam Bondi says crime ends today in Washington, D.C. So it's done. You finished it. I mean, like, did you guys not even talk about what you were going to say before you got up there? Because Trump's the worst thing ever. Then he's like, we stopped crime, and Patel's patting himself on the back. And under Trump, we made the murder rate the lowest it's ever been. It is. So it's the lowest it's ever been across the country. So why do you need the FBI going? I mean, National Guard going anywhere?
Well, and the other thing that gets me is, again, and I don't know, reporters just don't seem to be really hitting them hard on the facts here. The big beautiful bill, as it's called, took $1 billion with a B dollars from the District of Columbia budget. Wow. So let me get this right. You think you need National Guard troops and federal agents in DC because they can't handle, allegedly, their crime problem, and you took $1 billion from them. So imagine if that money would go toward recruiting and training police officers, or dealing with drug addiction or homelessness or mental health. Imagine that. And the other thing is, having come from the Bureau, the FBI, the federal agents can't engage with juveniles, and juveniles are a significant part of the crime problem today in American cities, including DC. And even Judge Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. Attorney for DC, she even said, "Oh my God, I'm agreeing with Jeanine Pirro." She said, "We really can't do anything with juveniles federally. We can't. The system's not set up. Do you know FBI agents can't talk to a juvenile without their parents present?" So this is a sham that we're addressing a crime problem, largely juvenile, by putting federal agents on the streets.
So who would, I mean, in a state, state officials would deal with it. So in DC, there is no authority to hold to deter.
When you put federal, when you put the police, of course, arrest juveniles all the time, right? And they do in DC, but it's a big problem in DC. And even, the guy Big Balls, who was employed by Doge and Elon Musk, that's in part, that's what triggered this, right? He got beat up by like 15-year-olds. His assault was by juveniles. And so if you think that putting FBI, DEA, ATF, and HSI and the alphabet soup on the ground is going to help with the juvenile crime problem, I'm here to tell you, they can't even talk to a juvenile. It's got to go to the police.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm talking about my friend Frank Figliuzzi. So, Frank, there was something that you raised attention to. You emailed me, you did a Substack video about it. And Washington Post had reporting that Trump is evaluating a plan to establish, quote, domestic civil disturbance quick reaction forces that are going to fly all over the country. Tell us about this and why it concerns you.
Yeah, it got my attention because, again, the news cycle is such that there's so many outrages per day that the media can cover. But Washington Post issued an exclusive yesterday. They've got their hands on a thick Pentagon research paper that's called pre-decisional. And I want to emphasize that it's pre-decisional. No one's pulled the trigger on it yet. But for people who say, well, the DOD does planning all the time, Frank, why are you concerned? It's not an old document. It's dated July and August of this year.
Right,
So it's
right.
now. They're planning a QRF that will of troops that will be stationed in Alabama to deploy to eastern half of the United States, wheels up in an hour, or in Arizona, 300 in each place is to deploy to the western United States. And what is it for? Quote, to quell protests or other civil unrest, unquote. So first, I'm a language guy. So when you say protests or other civil unrest, you mean that protests are civil unrest? No, no, they're not. No,
Right.
protests are a constitutional right of speech and assembly. So number one, but even bigger than that. Who are these troops? They're not the state governor deploying his or her National Guard. They're falling under the National Guard command at the Pentagon. They're going to be taken from states, various states, stationed in Alabama and Arizona, and deployed with federal funding for the National Guard. Now,
Mhm.
supposedly, a governor is supposed to agree that he or she needs help before Trump sends the
Right.
National Guard in. But what if they don't? What if they don't? Is this what they're preparing for? And by the way, do they know something we don't know, that there's going to be civil unrest in the near future that's going to require a federal national response of military troops under the president? All of this extremely disturbing. And it's in writing, being researched. And even according to the Post report, the research includes quite a discussion of the societal pushback that's going to happen if they do
Wow.
this.
So these guys would just, men and maybe women too as well, would just come off the plane, parachute in, however, say there's a protest going on in Chicago, and all of a sudden these 300 troops show up who are trained, and I assume they're not there just to stand on the corner. I imagine they're like a force, like a quick reaction force. That's their name.
Yeah.
They're actually going to engage, attack, shoot
So,
people. What are they
so
going to do?
lots of unanswered questions. The Post article says they believe this research is based on Title 32 powers of the president, which allows him, in an emergency situation, law enforcement situation, to deploy the guard under his direction to a state. But but that's always been, almost always been, the guard in your state, right?
Right.
So people go, oh, Frank's an alarmist. The president can federalize the guard in the state. That's not what this research is for. The research is for taking the president having his own little pocket quick reaction force and deploying it as he sees fit. And the question becomes, what happens if a governor says, no, thanks. No, thanks.
Right.
I don't need that.
You know, we've talked in the past about the FBI being used for immigration work and helping with the immigration roundups that are going on. I saw some reporting at one point that the FBI was going to be used more in DC. I'm not sure if they are or they're not. They are. I mean, what is the morale like at the FBI right now?
Oh my God. So you literally do have agents on night shift patrolling the streets of DC right now.
Like beat
Um,
cops. They're just like beat cops walking the streets.
yeah, I mean, I've seen the videos of them. I'm sure the donut shops in DC are running out of product right now. They're not, FBI agents aren't trained to patrol the streets. It's questionable as to their arrest powers. An FBI agent can make an arrest if a felony is committed in their presence.
Mhm.
They, as we said, they can't engage with juveniles. DC is a unique place where almost everything's a federal crime anyway, so that kind of helps the mission. But if they're thinking of doing this elsewhere, my big question is, what happens? What are they not doing? 120 agents have been taken just from the FBI field office in DC. That's a
Mhm.
lot of agents that aren't doing their casework and not addressing corruption, you name it, everything else. That's a major concern of mine. And in some states, Dean, during my career, we had to go to legal battle with a state over whether an FBI agent was, quote unquote, a peace officer recognized by that state to make arrests.
Hmm.
So you're going to run into that issue of what are agents going to do on the street?
So does it objectively make us less safe as a nation if they're not working on, say, counterterrorism, anything with gangs, drug cartels, the other work they usually do?
Yeah, the whole point of the FBI is having the ability to look at the 30,000-foot level nationally and take down gangs, drug distribution networks, child pornography rings and pedophile rings and trafficking, you name it, organized crime. And if you're patrolling the streets for a performative presence in a city, you're not addressing those national issues.
There's no doubt it's finite resources, not unlimited resources. If you take X away from the ones who would be working on counterterrorism to work on the streets or on immigration, that's less people working on the other issue to keep all of us safe. I want to get your reaction. I saw that last week, Trump administration purged 2 FBI agents, including Brian Driscoll, who for a short time was acting director of FBI. Tell us a little bit about what's going on there, why this happened, if you could.
So look, very respected agents. Really, Driscoll was his current position was assistant director of critical incident response group. Falling under him was the elite hostage rescue team. The guy's an agent's agent. He became the acting director for a time before Kash Patel showed up. He took a stance. What was his cardinal sin? He took a stance on turning over to DOJ all of those January 6 case agents. They settled on, okay, give us the employee ID number or something, but he really took a stance. And he's not, here's the thing. At least 2 of these agents that were walked out are not retirement eligible yet. They haven't done their time yet. And so you are saying to a career agent, sorry, I'm flushing this all down the toilet. You're out. Why? Because you really abided by the policies and the laws. Similarly, the agent who worked, among many other cases, the case against Peter Navarro, the economic advisor to the president, and helped send him to prison. Cardinal sin, right? Can't do that. Can't work a corrupt Republican. He's out. Not only is he not retirement eligible for a pension, he lost his wife to cancer last month.
Oh my
And
God.
he was walked out the door. And then the third agent, high profile anyway, was the head of the Washington field office. The head of the Washington field office was told to get out. And I don't even know the details, but he certainly was involved in January 6 cases, among other things. So the FBI Agents Association has issued a statement saying these basically, I'll paraphrase, these agents did their job. They're being punished for it. And so you ask about morale. Yeah, we're on the streets patrolling for what we don't know. Our most respected agents and agents who just worked January 6 cases they were assigned are being kicked out. Yeah, morale can't be good.
I mean, what's the message to the agents that are still there right now? I mean, because Trump does this for a reason, right? It's to affect conduct. And they're not going to investigate Donald Trump no matter what. We know that, or anyone in his orbit, that it's under Pam Bondi's DOJ. So that's not going to happen. But what do you think the message is?
I get concerned about that we're going to lose proactivity. The way you get your hands on a crime problem is to get out in front of it. I don't care if you're talking about street gangs or public corruption. You got to get out in front of it and make an impact. And when you're doing things like patrolling streets, and here's the thing. Are we ever going to see, let's talk about public corruption, a huge priority in the FBI.
Right.
Are we ever going to see a Republican elected official investigated and prosecuted for corruption? Unless, of course, it's an enemy of Trump, right? So those corruption squads, those agents have got to be sitting there now going, I got a corruption case against the Republican mayor or city commissioner. I've got a U.S. attorney that was appointed by Trump who may not be interested in hearing this at all.
Right.
At all. That's where I think we're going, is the lack of proactivity and the idea that FBI agents will just be cops. They'll be federal cops and they'll be out responding reactively to crime. That doesn't help the crime problem.
Interesting to look at it that way. You would noted something online about there was a shooting at the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta. It got a little bit of press, not as much as it probably should have, but a police officer is dead. You wrote because a shooter targeted the CDC. It blamed his issues on the COVID vaccine, basically on misinformation here. When you look at this, is this, like a radicalization, just happened to be based on misinformation and lies, and the person that acted on this misinformation and committed a violent act?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't much different, is it, than the guy who was shot by FBI agents in Provo, Utah, who were coming to arrest him because he was a conspiracy theorist, crazy person,
Right.
and he reportedly swung a weapon toward the agents. How about the guy who tried to take over or breach security at FBI Cincinnati field office because he was a conspiracy crazy person? Or the guy who bashed the head of Nancy Pelosi's husband in San Francisco because he adhered to conspiracy theory lunacy. So now here's somebody who says the vaccine's horrible, the COVID vaccine made me a mess, and I'm going to randomly start shooting at CDC headquarters. It's all conspiracy theory driven violence. And you know, the numbers on police officers who died from COVID are extremely high. They're way off the charts with regard to the rest of the population. Because they're out there defending us in the public.
Right. Right.
And now, ironically, a police officer has died, and no, not literally from contracting COVID, but because some crazy person thought that the COVID vaccine was a problem. It's unbelievable.
It is. It's sad. And, last thing, when you look at what's happening out with this administration, the lies on crime data, even we have questions about the economic data. Even Wall Street has questions about the veracity of the economic data, especially with the person Donald Trump nominated to be the head of the BLS for data on economic information. I mean, when you can't believe anything from an administration, does that pose problems from a law enforcement point of view?
Oof. So I don't know how we get this back, Dean. It's going to take a generation at least for people to believe in what's coming out of the government and the numbers. And yeah, it's the economy, stupid, as has been said, that if we can't try, if the new head of BLS, who by the way has just first day on the job, has proposed what? I think we need to do away with these monthly or quarterly announcements
Monthly
on the
job
numbers.
reports. Yeah.
Oh God. Oh,
Just
okay.
randomly do it. Whenever the numbers look good, we'll announce it.
Right. So we can't believe it. And this is going to happen throughout. He's revising history. Reportedly, at the Smithsonian Institute, they're going to go through all the exhibits and see if they adhere to a Trump version of history. We are literally living at a time when history is going to be rewritten to the tune of a particular president.
It's unreal. So, Frank, before we wrap up, where can people follow your stuff, Substack and other places?
Yeah, I am trying to grow my Substack audience because it gets me on short video clips. I try to explain things. So migrate over there. It's free. I haven't hit the paid subscriber button yet. Right. I love the idea to go deeper on things. I also have a website where you'll get lots of my clips, columns, appearances. That's frankfigliuzzi.com. And of course, I'm on Instagram for slightly more fun things, and Blue Sky and Threads.
Well, thank you, Frank. Thanks so much for spending some time making us a little smarter here. And I look forward to chatting with you in the future.